Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another teardown video. In today's video we're going to be taking apart this PS4. It's a bit more of a newer model in comparison to the last PS4 teardown that I did. You can see this one's a bit cosmetically different. This one actually has a matte cover for the hard drive area, whereas it's usually a glossy area. But yeah, we're going to be taking this console down, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is we're going to need to remove the warranty seals at the back. Now if you've had your PS4 for a long time, chances are this won't really affect you too much. A bit of a won't matter you too much, as I was saying, so go ahead and get your tweezers. I do apologize, of course. Do apologize if I pause and then start playing again very often, guys. I've just got a bit of a messy area. But yeah, the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and remove your warranty seals. So these two stickers here. So go ahead and just peel them off like so. You can go ahead and try to keep stickers in as mint condition as possible if you like, but it's not really that much of a requirement per se. Okay, so those stickers are now removed. They are quite a bit difficult to remove, or at least remove nicely. You're going to want to go ahead and get your T8 torque security screwdriver, which I'm going to go ahead to try to find. There's this one here. This driver's a bit too big. We need to get a customized screw for that. It's too small. It turns out I'm just going to have to use the bigger driver. I don't have a slot inside which can go in there. Nonetheless, make do with what we have. So just go ahead and unscrew these like so. Again, I'm using tissue to go ahead and organize my screws. But again, just use any method that you really do feel comfortable with. That will help manage your screws, keep them all nice and organized. So that's all the screws removed. And the next stage will be to remove the bottom cover. So go ahead and just keep it like down like this. You should be able to remove the bottom cover. It's a bit stiff. I haven't missed any screws, have I? Nope, it's the only two. So guys, that took me an absurdly amount of time to remove this cover. So what I actually ended up doing is, from the corners, just putting your pry tool on the sides. So I'm going to go and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and just close it up. There. So if you're trying to do it with your hands, it's going to be very, very difficult. The bottom cover especially is very, very stuck on. So what you can do is get your plier or some sort of pry tool. Go ahead and just slip it in. There's like a little slit here. Should be able to just sort of like poke it in and just pull it back, like pry it open like that. So just push it in and it should just kind of come out loose like that. You can go ahead, do it to the other side. Let me show you. Go ahead, just slit it in. Then it should just pop out very, very nicely. I almost destroyed my fingers trying to take it out the other way. And it feels like you're about to break the cover as well. So it's better to use one of these sort of prying opening tools if you've got it. It definitely saved me my fingers. So yeah, that this was that annoying step. So you can go ahead and just slide that off once it's out. You know you've done it right when you know there's no loose pieces of plastic. If there are any loose pieces of plastic, then that does suggest that potentially you might have, you know, broken something. Just because there's a bit of dust here, there's quite a bit of dust build up there. I'm not sure what that's about. Just go ahead and get tissue with some alcohol when you're sort of just washing up liquid, because it's plastic, it doesn't really matter too much. So you can go ahead and just get anything and just go ahead and just clean it up a little bit. Doesn't need to be pretty, it's just a plastic cover, but if you just get the chance, just go ahead, go through it. It's actually quite a bit of dust there, it's quite thick actually. But yeah, just try and just clean it up as best you can, because this is tissue, it's not going to do much of a job. But nonetheless, it's better than how it was before, a little bit. Just go ahead and just clean that as best as you can. You can get a brush as well, that would help a little bit, get the finer pieces. Brush away, you can do that on the floor or something, so it doesn't get on your desk, into other pieces of the whatnot. You can always hoover up the floor. Okay, so cover is here. I'm gonna go ahead and probably when I come back to it last, I'm gonna go ahead and just soak the brush in alcohol and just clean it for a bit more properly. But yeah, that's that cover, so you can go ahead and put that to one side, because our next step is going to be to take out the power supply unit. So let's go ahead and do that now. A screwdriver, here it is. So take out these screws here and here. So depending on what PS4 you have, the PS4 will be slightly different in terms of appearance, but the general location of the screws should all still be pretty much exactly the same. So that's gone. And these ones are Phillips screws. Go ahead and get a Phillips screwdriver, one that's small enough. It's preferably smallest screw that you've got. These screws are a bit tight. So what I am going to need, unfortunately, is a screw with more torque. So I'm going to take this out, get a small Phillips screw that I've got. Good. 8 screwdrivers. Which one is it? I think this one should be small enough. Let's try and give this one a shot. Hopefully it is. Twisting it the wrong way. There we go, no problem. Just need a bit more of a twisting power. There we go. These ones are always a bit of a long one. At least this one's a lot more easier to identify the piece. There we are. Just take this piece off as well. Go ahead and put that to one side. And then what we've got here is the power connector. You're going to want to go ahead and remove that as well. Preferably use pliers or tweezers to remove it. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've got my needle nose pliers. I'm going to go here on the edge, grip the connector part, not the socket part, or else you risk destroying the motherboard. It's a bit hard this bit, but just go ahead, grab the plastic white part, the male part as some people like to say, and just twist it out, wiggle it back and forth while pulling it out. And it should just come out like that. Right, so it's this part you want to get hold of, not the other part. Now that that's out, the power supply unit should just come out. There's nothing else really holding it down besides from some metal, kind of like tongs, if you like. When you're taking things out the first time, everything's just really like slotted in place. It's really difficult to remove things. But yeah, there's no other screws attached, so this should, in theory, just come out. But blimey, things are really just stuck in place, you know. Just don't want to come out. So I'm gonna stop here, and I'll get back to you when I've got it out. Okay, so after a lot of prying, I managed to actually get the power supply out. As you can see, it's a bit dusty in there. So what you can go ahead and do is just get your brush again, if I could find it. Gosh, I need to be more organized. Just go ahead and just lightly brush it. You know you're doing a good job cleaning it when there's dust and stuff flying all about. So next you're going to want to remove all these cables here. So go ahead and remove this little cable here. Just pull up on that and pull up on this one as well. You can go ahead and try your tweezers, but you should be able to just sort of wiggle it out. Oh, these connectors are really solidly placed. For some reason this cable here seems to be very stuck, so I'll get back to you. Next up is to remove the hard drive. So go ahead and get your Phillips screw again. Take out that. It's easy to remove this plastic cover that's covering the PS4. You just need to pull up from the sides and it just comes out. So that part's actually this part is actually very user replaceable if you want to upgrade the internal hard drive into an SSD or something like that. So it's very easy to do that. It's the hard drive. If you want to go ahead and just replace it, you could just go ahead and unscrew these, and you can go ahead and upgrade the hard drive to a new SSD, for example, or a new HDD if your one's dying out. Just gonna go ahead and put that there. Then what you can do is go ahead and remove these two screws that are holding the top cover. So this one, and this one. And then you can sort of just pull this up from the sides. So again, you just have to pull quite a bit hard from these bits. You will hear it sort of snap and click as it comes off. Again, you will know you've done it right when hopefully there's no loose parts that snap off. As you can see, there's also quite a bit of dust here, so go ahead and grab your brush. Go ahead and just clean it off. Now the next step, if my phone would focus, there we go, is to remove the Torx screws and the Phillips screws, all screws that are basically connecting this metal panel to the other side. So let's go and do that now. I'm going to show you which screws you need to remove. So basically anything that's connecting this metal panel to the rest of the console. It's quite a large piece, this. So just find all the screws, again making sure you're grouping them as much as possible. So it's 4, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, this is 8, this is 9, this is 10, this is 11, this is 12. Now again, depending on your PS4 model, it may look slightly different or similar. For example, I know that the original PS4s don't actually have this sort of plastic style connector. Again, I'm not sure why this is necessary, probably just to keep the motherboard in place. So this, I'm assuming, just probably just clips on again underneath. Let's go ahead and just put that to one side. And then the Phillips screws. These are a bit tight, so do just apply a bit of force to get them out. So this is probably one of the more difficult models to actually take apart. There's quite a bit of screws here. Which does make it genuinely very, very difficult to actually take apart. Just a bit of perseverance. Should be able to now remove this sort of funky cover. Go ahead and put that off to one side. And I don't think that's all of them. We still have these. Still have quite a few screws, fortunately, to remove. So these ones are actually all pretty much exactly the same. These small black screws. one over here. There we are. So now hopefully this cover should just come off. So I don't even need to remove these screws here. Let's just take this off. There we are. So that's this metal panel. Can go ahead and set that off to one side. This one's actually not very dirty at all. It's actually quite clean. And so now we can go ahead and remove this clamp, which is holding the APU to the heatsink. Now you can actually remove the motherboard from the console. What you can see is these black sort of pads. I'm actually going to remove them and dispose of them because these are very small. As you can see, Sony didn't even really put them properly. This is like quarter of it is not even on. Another one here. They don't even cover the whole chip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and replace them with some thermal pads that actually cover the APU significantly better. Again, the console will run just fine. It's just putting those thermal pads and whatnot will just make the console run more quiet. It'll make it run cooler and just, you know, help extend the lifespan of the console. So again, none of this is really necessary, but if your console is of course, you know, overheating or, you know, something like that, then, you know, perhaps you should go ahead and just do a deep clean anyway to just help prolong the lifespan of your console. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these, and I'm going to go ahead and remeasure the chips and go ahead and put better thermal pads, and most importantly aim to cover it. So look at that. These two placements are horrendous. This one as well is not even on it. These ones are not too bad, but as you can see, these thermal pads are just, you know, very, very small, and as you can see, some of them are not even positioned really correctly, so not really cooling down the chips as best as they could. But again, having some thermal pads is better than nothing, which is why Sony had this, probably just to ultimately reduce cost. And as a business, you do want to go ahead and save money wherever possible. Make sure you go ahead and disconnect the fan cable, and there's this connector here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure you disconnect that. So just pull that out. Then go ahead and grab your tweezers or needle nose pliers, whichever really works better for you. Grab to the connector part, not the socket part, and just wiggle it out. Like so. There we are. And just double check, make sure nothing else connected to the motherboard, which there isn't, so we should be able to go ahead and just pull up the motherboard. And it should just come out loose. Like so. There we are. Ooh. Something's just come out. I think that's actually the I think that's for goodness, I'm actually not too sure what that piece is for. Where did that one come out from? So, taking a close look at the motherboard, you can see actually it's not too dusty at all. It's actually quite clean. Even the thermal paste is actually not too bad. Hopefully you can see that it's still actually a bit wet. If I go ahead and get my tool, go ahead and just poke at it, it's actually still quite wet. So, you know, this one's actually not too bad. You know, at least the ones on the APU are still, you know, actually quite clean. But these ones around it are quite dry. You can sort of see this one's just crumbling about. That one's actually just gone ahead and effectively just run off. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take all of this out, and what I'm gonna go and do is I'm gonna go ahead and put more newer thermal paste. You can see this thermal paste is actually not too bad. It's still actually quite liquidy, so it actually wasn't even that bad. But we can always do better by applying fresh, new, and better quality thermal paste to ensure that the console is always cooling the best it can. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get some isopropyl alcohol to just go ahead and just clean all of that off on a rubber band. Not on the rubber band, what am I talking about? On just some Q-tips. Just go ahead and just try and clean this off best as I can. Trying to make sure that the APU is as clean as possible. There we are. So now it's just trying to scoop all of this out. So APU is now sparkly and shiny clean. No more of the old thermal paste in there. The isopropyl alcohol will quickly evaporate as well. So you guys can see. Looks wonderful. The motherboard's actually really small. I'm surprised how much they fit on here. At least at the time. Very impressive indeed. I'm going to go ahead and put the motherboard to one side. We can go ahead and clean the heatsink. We'll just, remove the old thermal paste that was on there. Gonna need a new cotton bud. Go ahead and clean that, and go ahead and just soak it up with the dry part. If you want, you can of course always go ahead and use a piece of tissue. There appears to be still a bit that's stuck on there. There's also a bit of dust as well. Just making sure this heatsink is as clean as possible. There we are. Which now it is. Then our next part is go ahead and remove any screws that could be attached here, which I think we've already removed them in the previous step. So this piece should just go ahead and remove. So, well, got three screws here actually that we need to go ahead and remove. And so now we can go ahead and remove those 3 screws. There we are. Now this panel just comes off. Now to see how really dirty this console is. And it's not too bad at all actually. You could actually still see oh, excuse me. You can actually see right through it. There's a bit of dust on there obviously. It's just a speck mostly, but even then, state of it is really good. It's really clean. There's actually quite a bit of dust that's starting to float out, but probably just microparticles and whatnot. But just nowhere near as bad as the first one that we unboxed. This is sparkly clean. It's just nothing there at all. I'm gonna go ahead and just dip this in alcohol just to really go ahead and just clean that. But even then, it's still just really clean. Overall, the heatsink is in really good shape. Again, I'm impressed. This console is really clean. It's not particularly too old. Again, it's one of the newer PS4 models, but still, it's a really nice and clean console. For the most part, there's a bit of dust that was gathered around, but honestly, for the most part, this console is really clean. And it's just about giving it better cooling, really. So as long as you don't have your console on like the carpet or something, then most of the time PS4 consoles can really last forever, really forever. Anyway, so that's the heatsink. As you guys can see, you can pretty much see right through it. It's really clean. It's in really good shape. Yeah, it's just a really clean heatsink. There wasn't even much dust to begin with. I'm always amazed by how small this heatsink is in comparison to something like the the PS4, which just has an absolute monster. But you can see it's a very small heatsink. I'm going to go ahead and put this to one side. And we can go ahead and take a look at the fan, which only has, to my knowledge, 1 screw. We removed the previous one, I believe. And there we are. Just pull this out. And that's the fan. This fan's quite a bit of dust. It's probably the dustiest bit. But even then, you know, overall I'm very happy with how this console looks. You know, for the most part it is really, really clean. Just obviously there's a bit of dirt here and there. I've said that so many times this video, but it is where it is really. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just pause the video while I just clean up the rest of it, and let's go ahead and get to putting this thing back together. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cleaned the fan now, guys, and the next part of this teardown, we're going to go ahead and put everything back together, reapply the thermal paste, remeasure and apply thermal pads, and yeah, just get this thing back to how it once was before. So hope to see you guys there, and